Hey, Shalom, Malcolm, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I want to give all praise, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Hakakwadash. Double honor to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and that's what teaching this truth. And much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with the 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver in these last days. To you all I say Shalom. I'm the brother Tazamon from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another lesson, and I pray this lesson will be edifying to the elect. And what I want to do was go into a lesson entitled Iuic. Did the Apostle Paul bear the spiritual marks of the Lord? All right, once again, Iuic. Did the Apostle Paul bear the spiritual marks of the Lord? All right, and it was just something I was just meditating on and thinking. I was doing a little bit of reading, and I was going through some precepts, and I came across Galatians 6 and 17. As we know, it says, I bear the marks of my Lord Yahweh Shai Mashiach in my body. We'll read it, But that word mark that was there used, all right, that the Apostle Paul used, slacking for all the noise. Was that a spiritual? Was he referring to spiritual marks that he bore in his body, or was he talking about literal physical marks that he had on his body due to the testimony of Yahweh Shai? Him being beaten, him being as it says in 2 Corinthians the 11th chapter, he said, like, thrice I was beaten with rods. I was beaten by 3 times I received 40 stripes save one. He got stoned, shipwreck, all these various different things, and he was being physically, being attacked. So obviously he had physical marks on his body. So let's actually get it real quick. All right, this is Galatians chapter 6, verse 17. It says, from henceforth, let no man trouble me, for I bear in my body the marks of the Lord Yahweh Shai. So he says, I bear or carry in my body the marks of the Lord Yahweh Shai. Right? Now, when you get this word marks here, that word is stigma. All right, stigma. Okay, it says from primary stezo to stick, i.e. to prick. Like, for example, when you get a tattoo, or you will get marks on your body, which the law prohibits us from getting any kind of markings in our flesh, for the dead or anything like that. But what happens is that, you have little needles with ink on it, and you're actually sticking or pricking your body, leaving what's behind a mark, which is something that's physical. All right. Now, once again, that word is stigma. Keep this all in mind. That word is stigma. All right. And let's get this real quick down here. It says, we'll actually read the whole thing. It says German stretching, English stick or sting. All right. It says a mark pricked in or branded upon, a mark pricked in or branded upon the body. So it's an actual mark that will be pricked in or branded upon the body. This isn't anything spiritual here. There's something that's physical, right? It says, according to ancient Oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bear the name or stamp of their master or commander branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. And there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the token of their gods. See that? So this wasn't anything spiritual. This is actually something physical. Okay? It was a physical branding or a physical mark or sticking that they would do to show forth their allegiance to who they worship, whether it be to their master or the commander or the god that they worship. That's why you see, people in the so-called Hindu religion, what do? They have a red dot in the middle of their forehead, and it's something physical that you can see, because it's a brand or a mark upon their head showing reference to a deity that they're worshiping. Okay? It says the marks of the Lord Yahweh Shai, which Paul in Galatians 6 and 17 says he bears branded on his body. are the traces left there by the perils, hardships, imprisonments, scourgings endured by him for the cause of Mashiach, and which mark him as Hamashiach's faithful and approved votary, servant, or soldier. See that? So he actually had physical marks on his body from getting whipped, from getting stoned and beaten with rods and things of that nature, which showed forth his obedience to Yahweh Shai. As the scriptures tell you, we have to, the Apostle Paul said that you're pretty much partakers in the afflictions of Yahweh Shai. You see that? Now, mind you, don't you think that if this was something spiritual, this mark that was spiritual, as the IUIC likes to say, the mark is sin, or the mark, it's a spiritual mark. Don't you think that he would have used maybe the word sfragis in the Greek, where it's the same word that's used for a seal? Don't you think he possibly would have used that word? Why do you think the word stigma was used? Okay, why do you think the word stigma was used versus phragis, or a character? That's another one. That's another word, character, a character, right, in the Greek. Why? Well, how come those two words wasn't used, but the word specifically stigma was used for marks in the Greek here in Galatians 6 and 17? Why do you think that's the case, IUIC? I would love to hear your response. Who the hell am I? You know what I'm saying? But I would love to hear your breakdown on that. 2 Timothy 2 and 19, it says, nevertheless, the foundation of Yahweh standeth sure, having this seal, right? Which this seal is synonymous with Ezekiel 9 and 4, Thawah. Set a mark upon the foreheads of the men that sign, that cry for the abominations that be done in the midst thereof, right? Having this seal, sfragis, a seal. You see? It says a seal placed upon books, a signet ring, the inscription or impression made by a seal of the name of Yahweh and Mashiach stamped upon their foreheads, right? Which is something that's spiritual. It's something that's going to be spiritually in your mind. So if the MOTB is something that's going to be spiritual, and it references sin, how come it's given a carnal implication? Beginning with the apostles on down, we've gone through this time and time again, but the IUIC is backtracking, backtracking on the MOTB in that compilation video, that came out about like a week ago or so. That just seals the deal. that just seals the deal, man. It says that by which anything is confirmed, proved, authenticated, as by a seal, a token, or proof. Which, for example, like Yahweh Shai and the apostles were authenticated, all right, by way of the miracles that they were able to do in the name of Yahweh Shai. It authenticated them that they were the servants of Yahweh, through his only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai. It was the miracles, though, that did that. You see? So how come the Apostle Paul didn't use the words phragis, or he didn't use the word character? Or maybe the English is just good enough for y'all. This is Hebrews 1 and 3. It says, who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person. Right? Let's get that word image real quick here. All right, that word image in the Greek is charakter.
Strong's G 5481. Charakter.
See that? That's where you get the word character from, right? But it says the mark, figure, or letters stamped upon that instrument or wrought out on it. Hence, universally, a mark or figure burned in or stamped on an impression, the exact express image, the exact expression, the image of any person or thing, marked likeness, precise reproduction of every respect. So Yahweh Shai is the express image of his Father. Doesn't mean that he is actually the Father. But how is Yahweh Shah the express image of his Father? Because they have the same characteristics, which is all, they have the same characteristics. The name embodies, the characteristics. You see? But when you hear Bishop Nathaniel and them break it down, all right, what do they say? Well, let's take a listen. Hold on.
Revelation chapter 14, verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image. See that? If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark, and receive his policies in his forehead. In his forehead.
And it says, and receive his policies. This is what the IUIC is saying. And you receive his policies in your forehead. You see? Meaning that what? If this was a policy, of any sort that you would have to take in mentally and accept it mentally, don't you think that it would be another Greek word used there? Like sphagis, which would be the seal of the beast, etched into your mind spiritually, or the character or the image of it. And they don't even know that they can't even break the image down correctly. But don't you think another Greek word would have been used there other than charagma in Revelation 13 and 16? I told you to keep that word stigma, right? To keep that word stigma noted in your mind, right? Because that when you get Revelation 13 and 16, and he calls us all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bound, to receive a mark on their right hands or in the forehead, that no man may buy or sell save he that had the mark, right? That verse there is, as we know it, we go through it, we bring this out dang near in every video, right? Now, when you get this word, charagma, right? Charagma, a stamp, an imprinted mark, of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the anti-Messiah, which is not just one person that's the anti-Messiah. It's pretty much this whole system is anti-Yahweh Shai. Thing carved, sculpture, graven work, right? We've gone through this plenty of times. Now, when you get that word karax, or the root word goes back to, let's just go back so y'all can see, from the same as karax. So the charagma is from the same as karax. Right? A pillar stake, a palisade, right? A palisade or rampart, pales between which earth, stone, and trees and timbers are heaped together. So it's pretty much, it's something with a point at the end of it, right? Like a palisade will be stuck into the ground so that it can make a rampart, or it can make a like a wall, for lack of better words, right? Which this would be considered, all right, the syringe, for lack of better words, that's going to be used to implement the charagma. But let's go a little bit deeper. All right, then you got grapho, right? To write with reference to the form of the letter. So it's something, a grapho, something you write in, right? But let's go back to the verse. Verse 18, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 636, right? For his number is 636, excuse me, which is where you get that word chai, zai, stigma. Okay? Chai, zai, stigma. And what do you get here? You get the word stigma, which is what? A mark branded or pricked on the body. A physical marking. So once again, IUIC, once again, did the Apostle Paul bear the marks in his body? Did the Apostle Paul bear the spiritual marks in his body? Or was it actual physical marks that he bore in his body for the testimony of Yahweh Shai, to show that he was devoted to Yahweh Shai? It wasn't marks that he actually put on himself. You see, it wasn't actual marks that he got and cut into his own flesh. No, that's not the case. But it's a reason as to why that word stigma was used there versus the word sfragis or the word karakter or for image. It's a reason why specifically stigma was used, because both relate to a physical bodily marking, both, and this is the proof. And once again, it's not like the proof ain't been out there. These lessons have been going out, but it's just like how much more proof do you need? According to Bishop Nathaniel, we got 20, 30 years left in this place. We got 20 to 30 more years left. I'll be a 62-year-old man in Babylon. So it gotta get even worse than this. It gotta get even worse than what we seeing now today with all the BS, the sickness, the disease warfare, the AI. It has to get even worse than this though. For 20 to 30 more years. My son growing up, my son be 30 years old. Like, come on, man. That's some madness, man. Even the consequence for taking the MOTB in Revelation the 14th chapter, man, that's a tangible consequence. That's something physically that's gonna happen. That's a tangible consequence for you receiving. For you. Matter of fact, let's get it real quick. This is a tangible consequence of the wrath of the Lord for doing something. You see, and it can't be sin. You see, because how can you refuse sin? Matter of fact, we'll get to that point in a second. This is Revelation 14:9. It says, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Yahweh, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb." You see that? That's a tangible consequence for taking the MOTB. You see? And even for those, in Revelation the 20th chapter, there's going to be a reward for those who did not receive the MOTB or did not bow down and worship the beast nor his image or receive the mark in their right hand or in their forehead or in their hands. This is a deliberate refusal of something. You see? So this is going to be this is a deliberate refusal of something externally. That'll be externally happening. How can you deliberately refuse something? How about this, IUIC? How can you deliberately refuse sin when it's already embedded in your members? Now, granted, there are sins and transgressions that, keeping your beard, shaving your beard, being just an all-out moe. These things are externally seen. So is it what, if you take the MOTB, which is sin, according to the IUIC, is it what you got to be a moe in order to buy or sell? Like, what is it? What's that sin going to be? Whereas you will be put to death for it, because not every sin is not every sin is punishable unto death. So what sin are they going to use? Because of Revelation the 20th chapter, these are those who did not take the MOTB that are going to be glorified. And it's a deliberate refuse. It's a deliberate refusal. You see? Why do you think they're going to come down with great wrath? And like it says in 2 Ezra the 16th chapter, they're going to be as madmen sparing none. You think it's going to be something spiritual? You think it's going to be like something spiritually happening? No, it's going to be a forced change, man. It's going to be something that's forcefully administered, and if you ain't down with it, it's going to be consequences. So once again, IUIC, going back to this bogus breakdown. Let's listen one more time.
Image, see that? If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark, and receive his policies in his forehead, or in his hand, or in your hand, you support it, the same shall drink.
The forehead of your hand, because you support it. Once again, he that hath understanding, let him count the number of the beast, for his number 603 score and 6. Chai is our stigma, and that stigma goes back to the same word that was used for mark, the marks in Galatians 6 and 17. Did the Apostle Paul bear the spiritual marks of the Lord? In Galatians 6 and 17, was that spiritual or was that physical marks in his body? I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Chakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone that taught us his truth and also teaching his truth. Much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Until next time I say, Shalom.